All right, so we'll call to order this special meeting of the Easton Reading Region 9 Boards of Education at 6:31 p.m. on June 28, 2022. I'll start by calling to order the Easton Board of Education. Members in attendance are myself, Jeff Parker, Randy Hicks, and I'm looking for one other member.
I'm here, John.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Alicia. Thank you very much for helping us make quorum. Welcome aboard to your first meeting, Alicia.
Thank you.
And I will turn it over to Mike Hoffman, who is serving as chair for the Reading board tonight. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting of the Reading Board of Education to order. We do have a quorum. Present are myself, Michael Hoffman, Steph Olton, John Belfato, Laura Gibbons, and Chirag Sadana.
Recording in progress.
And we'll ask that Mike call to order for the Reading Region 9 board. Sorry.
So I'll call to order the special meeting for the Region 9 Board of Education at 6:32 as well. Members in attendance are Cheryl Graziano, Kathy Thompson, Todd Johnson, Karen O'Brien, Mary Lee Pampel, and myself, Mike D'Agostino.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. And we'll jump into the agenda. Tonight we have a discussion and possible action. The items A and B, both related to sort of central office staffing, and specifically we want to start with the consideration for appointment of the Director of Finance, Operations, and Technology. We have a contract that the joint negotiating committee discussed the Saturday before last. Together, it is a strong recommendation. I'm hoping that everyone has seen that contract. I can bring it up on the screen as well if anyone has any questions about the details of that contract. The terms are very similar to our previous Director of Finance and Operations. Just to note, at 6:33, I see Jen Did Jesus joining us as well. And our search throughout the process, Dr. McKinnon sort of brought in the board chairs to consider the resumes for the qualified candidates, and we have a strong preference for Ms. Sarah Scrofani, who is our existing Director of Technology and Digital Learning, and has proven herself quite adept at navigating the nuances of the budget. And the negotiating committee wholeheartedly endorses both her candidacy as well as the contract to be approved, we hope, tonight. The contract, as I mentioned before, mirrors the terms of the previous sort of holder of the position in terms of compensation range and benefits. The one change, because Ms. Scafani is a 092. There's a difference in the way that retirement and sort of pension is done for professional educators versus non-092 certified educators. And so we don't need to carve out that separately. That's sort of a part of the state process. So that does reduce the sort of overall financial obligation by about $14,000 to $15,000. Aside from that, I think the terms are very similar to the ones that we've approved in the past. And so I think that I think what we would look for is a motion to approve the contract. I think in order to jump into discussion, the hope would be that we would entertain that motion, jump into discussion, and then move on to a vote.
John, can I ask a quick question? Where can we find the contract?
Let me bring it up, and sorry, just bear with me one moment. And actually, let me send it out first so that everybody has this. Good. Just make sure that everybody has a copy of it handy. Okay. So you should all have that in your inbox right now, and then I'll also bring it up on the screen. One thing to note, it was the recommendation of the negotiating committee that we backdate the contract to be effective starting June 15th, seeing as Sarah has been doing a lot of this work already. And, I think without complaint or expectation, and I think we felt it was fair to backdate this to June 15th as opposed to starting it tonight.
John, I'll make a motion to accept the contract for Easton just to get the ball rolling.
Thank you, Randy. Do I have a second in Easton?
Second.
Yes, this is Jen. I second it.
All right, thank you, Jen. And I think maybe Alicia was beating you to that, but I couldn't see because I was sharing my screen. So apologies.
And do we have a motion in Reading?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Steph and Shrug? Or was that Laura and Shrug?
Is Laura.
Laura and Shrug.
For Region 9, does someone want to make the same motion?
I'll move. This is Cheryl.
Well, is there a second?
I'll second. This is Mary Lee.
So for anyone unfamiliar, we did quite a bit of work a couple of years ago on the contracts to try to align them. The negotiating committee had a number of painful conversations because there was a lot of trust necessary to say, like, we're not actually trying to remove benefits, we're trying to align the contracts. And so we sort of removed a lot of sort of language that was at odds with each other. Some of it didn't even make sense. In some cases, we found gaps in the contracts that really should have been stated, benefits that we intended to give, but weren't necessarily clearly articulated in the contracts. And so our senior personnel all have very similar contracts, so that the sort of main questions are not about, whether or not one person is getting bereavement days and another is not, or one person is, treated one way on, reimbursements and someone another. It's the main sort of differentiators here tend to be around the salary. So it makes it a lot easier to get transparency and clarity as to sort of exactly how we're compensating these critical employees.
Hey, John, question. We have finance and operations. We have director of digital technology and digital learning, or technology and digital learning. We're mixing and matching some of the roles and also adding folks to fill in some of those roles. Can you just speak to that quickly?
Yeah.
Just to everybody can kind of gain where the chess pieces are moving.
Yeah, and Dr. McKinnon is going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment, but just as it relates here, when we start thinking about how Dr. McKinnon has sort of talked about reorganizing and sort of shifting the pieces around in central office, I think that there is a high likelihood that we're moving towards, having an accountant who, maybe is a CPA. I think there's a sort of, we've talked about in our previous budget cycle this last year, we talked about a director of facilities. We've talked about a number of different roles. And in order for that all to work, I think Dr. McKinnon has a vision for the way that these sort of pieces come together and that we sort of move them around, and that, the $14,000 that we saved not having to fund a separate and sort of a pension of our own for someone in this role, that can go against this. The sort of director of technology role maybe is reimagined. That can go towards some of that, and so you start to see a lot of sort of moving around of those pieces that makes the vision that Dr. McKinnon has been talking about a reality. I think it may make sense for Dr. McKinnon to give us some of that context now, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that in the context of the open motion, because it does have a bearing, I think, unless my fellow chairs disagree. Good. Okay, Dr. McKinnon, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Do you mind if I share my screen, John?
Of course.
Okay. All right. So at our May tri-board meeting, we talked a little bit about what the director of finance and operations and technology, what their job responsibilities would be, and which required an upgrade from the traditional model, which was a director of finance and operations, which also oversaw facilities, because we were looking at getting a K-12 facilities manager, which is a position that we have posted for, and we do have applicants. And we were looking at ways in which technology could modernize the budget process for financial controls, increase transparency. And I think you saw some evidence of that during our last budget cycle, when we transferred our budget process to a Google model and developed websites and Google Sheets and ways for the public and the taxpayer to understand how we were organizing our budget into cost centers and so on. And our director of technology and digital learning was really part of that work. So when the previous business manager signaled his intent to leave the district, then we posted the position, and Ms. Scrofani applied, and the position was a director of finance, operations, and technology. So you can see from that diagram that we modified the director of finance and operations position to be a director of finance, operations, and technology position. And we talked about eliminating one of 3 secretaries at central office and adding an accountant in that position, essentially capturing that FTE. And then also looking at the accounts payable position and adding some responsibilities for a purchasing agent. So that's where we talked about that. You would have been familiar with that slide. So since Ms. Scrofani was the successful candidate, that means that we've had to rethink her current position. And as you know, she's the director of technology and digital learning. So this is another slide, and this represents kind of where we are today. So we have a director of finance, ops, and technology, and you can see in red the director of technology and digital learning, which is a position that I would propose eliminating, and substituting the director of technology, digital learning with a technology integration specialist. And so now you see how those pieces relate to each other. The technology integration specialist would be carrying forth many of Sarah Scrofani's responsibilities, providing leadership and instruction and coaching in the area of digital learning to principals and to schools. And Sarah can still have an oversight capacity with the business office and within technology as well. So that is the proposed organization and model, which includes the accountant that I explained.
Right. So John, I think we're kind of into item B on our agenda as well. So I think maybe we should, kind of circle back to the position, and we should probably discuss the candidate, the role, and take a vote before we go into the plan that includes that. So just to add a little bit to what Dr. McKinnon said, I think the realization for us has become apparent that the landscape of municipal finance, especially in schools, has really changed. E-Finance Plus, I mean, let's call it what it is. It's been the albatross around our neck for the last, 2-3 years, however long it's been. And we're looking for finance directors who not only can balance the books and have the vision to be able to manage the finances of district, but they also need to have the ability, the technical ability, to be able to navigate the platform, which seems challenging it's probably a biggest understatement, is that it's an extremely challenging platform. And so when we did look at, the other candidate, it was apparent that Ms. Grafani has the ability to not only the financial acumen to be able to do that role, but also, and I think, we've had the benefit of being able to see a little bit in that in the closing out of the fiscal year work that she has done, but to be able to manipulate the platform or work with the platform to be able to have it produce what its intent has been. And I don't think we've ever had that. And I think I, for one, am very encouraged and enthusiastic that we're heading in a great direction. And again, so as an individual board member, I would roundly endorse Mrs. Grafani for the position.
Any additional discussion or questions? And Randy, I don't know if we really got to the heart of what you were hoping to dig in on there, but is there anything else there?
We did, and I didn't want to jump the agenda, but also Mike volunteered his thoughts in your all's deliberation process. If anybody else has any others, or it's a bunch of dittos, then we can move to vote.
Just a quick clarifying question. Is the new accountant position going to report to Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I read from the chart, but just wanted to confirm.
Just to follow on Jen's question, and the HR manager is not, correct?
I'm sorry, Cheryl.
The HR manager is not reporting to Sarah, or this newly
No.
position. Okay.
No. HR manager would report to the superintendent.
Okay, great. Thanks.
If there are no further questions, I think we'll call the question in Easton. All right, we'll do, since we're on Zoom, I'll go to Jeff. Jeff votes aye. Thank you, Randy.
Yes.
Thank you, Alicia.
Yes.
Thank you, Jen.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I also vote absolutely. The motion passes unanimously in Easton.
I'd like to call the question in Reading. I'll do a voice vote like John just did. Stephanie, you're up.
Absolutely.
John,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Shirag,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Passes 6-0.
Okay, and in Region 9, Cheryl,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Mary Lee,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So it passes 6-0.
Excellent. Congratulations, Sarah, and thank you. We're very excited to continue working with you.
I am so honored to have my work with you recognized, and I'm so thankful to be part of the fantastic team, both at central office and with all of you as Board of Education members. And I think we can only get better, and I'm very excited about what we can accomplish together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Agreed.
All right, so that will take us to item B on the agenda. Dr. McKinnon, is there anything else you wanted to dive in on there?
No, I mean, this change is obviously related to Sarah stepping up into this role, and they're the obvious pieces that we needed to make changes on the board. And there may be ways in which we can be more efficient and add more value in the process. We'll be studying that along with Sarah and Dr. Pearson Hugo's on the call. So we'll be looking at that over the summer. The summer is a really reflective time, and it's a time to look over the horizon, to look at ways in which we can do things differently and do things better. And I have not had much time to be reflective. it's kind of been go, go, go since October. And so I really look forward to having some time this summer to study our priorities and to plan for next year and beyond.
Dr. McKinnon, I just want to add that I want you to prioritize taking some vacation and family time for yourself, and also Sarah and the rest of the executive team, because you've all done a tremendous job. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have questions or comments for Dr. McKinnon at this point?
Yeah, I know we have kind of a time constraint a little bit, but I wonder, Jason, if you could share your screen and put that the second slide up again. I think it's important not only for board members, but just for members of the public as well to further clarify how we're going to continue what we started with the digital learning and technology. And there's a box underneath there that I wonder if, Jason, if you would just spend a couple of minutes just to kind of explain how we're going to move forward as we've added so much to Sarah's menu, how we're going to be able to continue to deliver the digital learning aspect to these schools.
I think that's a really important question. And before Sarah came to Easton, Reading and Region 9, she was actually a technology integration specialist. So she has some insight as to what that position looks like. But we've obviously started to develop a job description and come up with the responsibilities of that role. And they are very much the responsibilities that the Director of Technology and Digital Learning have now, but obviously more closely aligned with teaching and learning and less in a kind of an administrative role. So you can see here that we've started to articulate that the technology integration specialist will implement the ITSD standards, which are the technology standards, future-ready teaching skills, focused on curriculum and the integration of technology into the classroom. This role is going to work closely with the Director of Operations and Director of Finance Operations and Technology and the Assistant Superintendent. You can see the qualifications here that we're looking for and some of the key responsibilities and roles. And that's obviously collaborating with business leaders to integrate hardware, software, and technology resources to meet national standards, to create and maintain resources for our school, for our staff in the areas of curriculum, data, and assessment, to coordinate, design, and implement professional development in the area of instructional technology, data privacy. Obviously, Sarah has started that work already. And there are a couple of administrative attributes in there as well, but this person's also going to be integral into upgrading our website, which is something that we've all been talking about as well. But overall, helping teachers bring their lessons to life in the classroom and utilizing technology as a more successful tool, utilizing the SEMA model and so on. So that's just some ideas that we have, and we've started to define what that role looks like.
I imagine, Dr. McKinnon, as we look at those responsibilities, that I think Sarah made some progress on those, sort of in the last year, but we were also asking her to do this and this and this and wear hats that, we're sort of not in her original job description. And with sort of, if we're able to find a quality candidate who can partner with Sarah, and I suspect you're also going to be partnering with this person and sort of making your vision heard. And I suspect Stephanie's also going to have, I imagine sort of the four of you all in a room talking about how we can support our teachers and sort of help them get to that next level of sort of applying technology in the best possible ways and like all of that. I feel like, it's almost inevitable that we start to see some really serious lift from that work with those sort of talented folks behind, sort of pushing. So are there any other questions or anything else for Dr. McKinnon?
Yeah, John, I have two questions. So one is the overall org chart. Is there one for central office, right? Not just the Sarah's pillar, and congratulations, Sarah, by the way. Not just Sarah's pillar, but the overall central office org chart.
Yeah, we actually started working on that in a program called Lucid Charts, and we're making some really good progress in kind of moving the pieces around and identifying who's reporting to who and where that person falls within the organization. And so we have a really good start on that. It also ties in how central office links to school-based leadership as well. So that is under construction.
And just to clarify, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question. Everything we're talking about in terms of these shifts and moves, budget neutral.
Budget neutral, actually, I think we'll be saving some money. But it'll depend on a little bit on who we hire and who applies.
Yeah.
And it's going to depend a little bit too on the accountant and the candidates and so on. So I'm not comfortable yet saying exactly what we're going to save, but I can tell you at the very least it's going to be budget neutral.
Nice.
And we might be able to save some money as well.
And then I guess the other question I had was just with respect to timing on positions, right? So any sense of priority, I'm guessing or speculating that perhaps the new position as well as the accountant might take priority, or not. It's fine. I just want to get a sense of, where there might be vacancies and what central office's priority would be to fill those vacancies.
Our priority was obviously Sarah's position. That's key. We've also posted for the facilities manager, and we have 4 applicants. And I actually do need some of you to volunteer your time to serve on an interview committee with me to select those applicants. That position is key. We have a lot of work to do this summer, and we do a lot of work in the summer when the students and the teachers are not working. So that to me is my next big rock to move. And then we will certainly get the technology specialist posted as well. So I can send another reminder, and I'm looking for a couple of volunteers to conduct some interviews for the facilities manager.
Thank you.
Right. If there are no further questions with relation to agenda item B, and I think that will take us to board member comment. Any comment on the Easton board? Hearing none, we'll give it to Reading.
Any comment from the Reading board? One note for staff for the note taking. We were actually 5-0 on the vote for Sarah's contract, not 6-0. I miscounted.
And I think it's for Jeff, right?
Right.
Because this is a joint meeting, so Jeff has
Right.
the pen. Yep, good.
Any further comments from anyone from Region 9?
Great. Well, then we'll look for a motion to adjourn in Easton.
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Second.
absent objection, we will consider ourselves adjourned in Easton at 7 p.m.
And look for a motion to adjourn from Reading.
Make it.
Second.
And absent objection, we are adjourned at 7 p.m. as well.
Motion to adjourn from Region 9.
So moved, Karen.
A second.
I'll second.
Absent objection, we are adjourned at 7 o'clock.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Jason, I'm going to stop recording now, and then you'll be host and you can start recording.
Yes, right. Just